Thank you everyone for joining us at the Japan Society of Boston on this Wednesday evening. We appreciate you taking your time to support us. Now it's my pleasure to present my fellow JSB colleague. Ian Malloy was born and raised in Bristol, Rhode Island. He has been interested in Japanese history and culture from an early age after wearing out many old VHS tapes of Godzilla films. Ian graduated from Roger Williams University with a degree in history, East Asian studies, and film, animation, and video. Through the JET program, he lived and worked in Noto, Ishikawa, and his love of Japanese history and passion for cultural exchange is what inspired him to create this program for us today. I'll pass it over to Ian. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'll just start off by sharing my screen. All right, so welcome everyone. My name, as she said, Ian Malloy, amateur historian of Japan and East Asia. I am hugely invested in the cultural exchange between Japan and the US, and I'm very happy to be speaking with you all today about a festival unlike any other in Japan and even the world. I will be telling you about Abare Matsuri, or the Fire and Violence Festival, which is a weekend of celebrating Rampage with some fireworks, food stands, and other festivals, staples of Japan. So, but first, I want to start off with some thanks to two entities. Without them, this event would not be possible. First, I want to thank the JET program, which is a wonderful opportunity for people like myself to go off to Japan and experience events like this, something that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. My year on the JET program living in Noto, Ishikawa, has been the highlight of my life, and I cannot wait to return there in the future. And secondly, I want to thank my dear friend, Robby Hason, who hopefully will see this at some point. He's also on the JET program, and he's living in the Noto Peninsula in the neighboring city of Suzu. He's an amazing photographer and took most of the gorgeous photos you will see in this presentation. This presentation is in a way a visual and audible representation based on his blog about his experience in the Abare Festival, mixed with my own study and experiences. So I thank him dearly for being a great storyteller, photographer, and friend. So as she said, I'll go through my presentation videos I put together for you all, and then we can have a little Q&A, and I'll answer to the best of my abilities. So get it started with some background. Festivals in Japan involve showing respect to the enshrined deity by parading it around in a mikoshi, and then returning it to the shrine at the end of the night. Locals and tourists mill about yatai booths, eating crepes, taiyaki sweets, skewered chicken, and other festival foods. Summer festivals are generally non-violent and are rooted in several different traditions, such as honoring the dead. Pictured here are a set of yatai booths from the Iida Machi Toriyama Festival I attended this time last year in Suzu, Ishikawa. And the other picture is the mikoshi used on the second night of the Abare Festival. Firework festivals are rooted in Obon, initially meant to welcome and celebrate the dead as they briefly visit our world and then send them off afterwards. And pictured here are fireworks from festivals I attended in Suzu and Wajima, Ishikawa, to the north of Noto, as well as an example from taiyaki from a yatai booth. So festivals on the Noto Peninsula are unique in that a majority don't primarily use mikoshi, but kiriko. Kiriko originally acted as a votive lantern that lit the way for the following mikoshi. But at some point, they became the center point to most festivals, a feature unique to the Noto Peninsula. Here is a model kiriko on display at the Noto Town Hall in Ushitsu. Here is the tallest kiriko in Japan on the left, located in Suzu. And on the right is a poster from the Noto Town Hall promoting tourism in the Noto Peninsula, showcasing landmarks such as the Senmai Dead Rice Terrace, the Mitsukijima Rock, and the plentiful amount of delicious seafood that the area is famous for. And as a side note, whenever I was out of the region for travel, I talked to Japanese people from other areas and I tell them where I was living in Noto, Ishikawa, and they would always react by saying, best seafood in Japan. And I can definitely see why they'd say that. So that brings us to Ushitsu's Abare festival. Abare stems from the verb abareru, meaning to act violently, to rage. And for those who don't know, Matsuri means festival. The Abare festival is split into 2 days, first for the Kiriko and the second for the Mikoshi, first for the fire, second for violence. Just a brief history before I get into a little bit later. According to legend, the festival started in the 17th century when the deity Gozu Tenno was brought from Kyoto to Noto. Gozu Tenno helped the people of Noto that traveled with him, and now they appease him with a festival of violence for his entertainment. I'll get into the specifics a little later after we learn a little bit more about the event itself. So let's get into the first night. Massive pillars of straw called taimatsu torches are lit on fire, and members of the community gather around their neighborhood's kiriko. At the flutist's signal, kiriko are lifted and paraded through the town. In total, 5 taimatsu torches lit the night, and numerous kiriko march around them. Occasionally, the carriers would dash directly under the flames as embers showered on them. As the pillars burn down, the wind carries little bits of burning straw up into the night sky. The tops of kiriko occasionally lit aflame, sparks landing on shirts and in hair, and the taiko drums beat a frantic rhythm. According to Robby's account, it was only after an ember caught a child's hair on fire that the parents decided to separate their children from riding the kiriko. The kiriko are very, very heavy. I should know I carried one up an extremely steep hill towards a family mart in the town. I don't think I normally possess the strength for that, but after a night of takoyaki and a lot of whiskey, I was able to muster it. Sadly, I don't have any pictures of me carrying the kiriko up to the family mart, but it's a memory I will have embedded in my head till the day I die. Although there are dozens of people per kiriko, eventually they tire and drop the kiriko onto stilts for rest. If the exhaustion sets in, say, directly under one of the taimatsu torches, this will then result in creating another burning pillar, although unintentionally. Police try their best to keep people at a safe distance, but often viewers would find embers in their hair or on their clothes. And I remember Robby and I's shirts had various burn marks on them by the end of the night. So next few slides, I'm going to be showing some video. I did my best to lower the audio, but in case anyone has their audio high on their computer, just a little warning in case it might be too loud. I'll give anyone a second for that. So pictures can hardly capture the energy of the festival. The fires burn bright red and hot, and the taiko drums beat frantically. Kiriko carriers chanted, flutes ring through the night. Here is a short video I took of the kirikos being carried. I was able to take some photos and videos for myself at the beginning of the night, but as I said before, my ability to take pictures waned as the night went on. So. And they drop it right after the end of the video. So the first night ended, and it was surprisingly a melancholic end. No climax, no grand finale, just the dying light of a taimatsu torch. The whole night was certainly violent, and it felt like there was a celebratory air, not unlike other festivals in the area. But first, before we get to the second night, let's take a look at a compilation of night 1. So let's get on to the second night, the night of the Mikoshi, the night of violence. It has a rather peaceful start with a group of men kneeling by a shrine where a priest stood over them saying a prayer. After the prayer is finished, the men pick up the Mikoshi shrine and run. After a short 100-meter sprint, the men arrive at their first stop of the night. They lift the Mikoshi high and smash it down onto the ground. The Mikoshi, portable shrine, the venerated vehicle to parade their honored deity through the town, ground against the cobbled street. Then they did it again, and again, and again. They spin it, drop it, spray it with water and sake, tip it over, and then smash it some more. After thoroughly inflicting the Mikoshi with damage, they picked it up, ran some more, and then do it again. This process is repeated several times, but eventually they arrive at a river where they promptly threw the Mikoshi in and climbed down after it. The violence continued, this time half submerged in water. After satisfactorily smashing it into the river, they took it out and ran off again. They stopped once to rest, prayed, drank large amounts of sake, and then the second day, unlike the first, ended with a bang, or I should say more fire. It was here that the first act of the second day finished. After taking the Mikoshi out of the river, they brought it back to the shrine, where another festival goer told me the god checked to make sure that Mikoshi was properly broken up. Of course, a different group did it all over again with a different Mikoshi, but it was midnight and I lived in the next town over of Matsunami, so it was time for bed. So now we're going to take a look at what I was just describing to you all. This one is a little longer. All right. So as you can see, both nights are crazy and energetic. The Abare Festival is definitely a favorite for the people of the peninsula and is looked forward to every year. But the question begs, why? Why take a symbol of respect for the local deities and violently smash it? The whole affair is even more unusual when put in the context of being in Japan, a place where many people take pride in their traditions of respect. So, in Robby's account, he first asked one of his co-workers at the Suzu town hall if she knew why they had such a festival. She half-jokingly said it was because the day of the rampage allowed for the people of Noto to be calm and peaceful for the rest of the year. Almost like the movie Purge, be violent once a year and then peaceful all the rest. While an entertaining thought, there had to be more meaning behind it. When he asked his boss if he knew why, he gave a clear impression that he thought the festival was crazy, and he told him, apparently their gods like violence, but said he hadn't attended in many years and didn't feel the need to. So there still had to be more there. According to legend, the festival started in the 17th century, like I said, with the deity Gozu Tenno was brought from Kyoto to Noto. Gozu Tenno is a Shinto and Buddhist kami of disease and healing. A festival was held to both celebrate the occasion and to help pray for the end of an epidemic spreading in the region. Sounds a little too familiar. At the festival, a large number of bees stung people suffering from the contagious disease and then cured them. So now the Fire and Violence Festival is held each year because the boisterous and spirited god that saved them from the epidemic finds it entertaining. So put into a historical context, we can better understand why the Abare Festival is held every year. Although the festival is sold on rampaging in the streets, the rage, the fire, and the violence doesn't properly paint the whole picture of the wonderful festival. The exhausted Kiriko and Mikoshi carriers weren't filled with fits of rage. They joked and laughed and celebrated together. You can kind of see in this picture too. People are smiling, they're having fun. As you can see in the videos, people are having lots of fun and clearly look forward to this. I could just tell from walking the halls of the schools I worked at that everyone was excited about the fireworks, smashing, food stands, and everything in between. The children couldn't stop themselves from talking about it. Then I remember they wanted me to carry them around like they were little Kirikos, and I did. So through all the smashing timbers and burning straw, the festival is about connections. It's about giving people a reason to return to their hometown, and it's about giving visitors an experience they won't soon forget. So this picture and some of the following pictures in the video is from the most recent Abare festival that just happened last week. They are only from the first night, however, as Robby attended again in his last year in Suzu. So, man, I cannot look at these pictures all the time. They're so beautiful. People come come from all over Japan, but they also come mainly from Kanazawa, as the capital of Ishikawa. There's tons of tourists. And I remember when I was walking the streets, especially of the second night, you could hear many of the people going, eh? Like they were very confused about the festivals, why they were doing it. Like I said, this is not usually done. Here's a short video compilation from last week's night one. So I reserved a little time for Q&A in case anyone had any questions.
The question's from the middle of the presentation, but Marie says, I presume it's quite muggy in the evenings. What was the weather like during the
Oh my God. Yeah, because there's actually already a heat wave going through Japan at the time. So it was regularly in the 90s every day. So you can imagine being around lots of fire and burning embers and tons of people everywhere. It is right next to the water, but I can only do so much. It was extremely muggy and hot. And I think and never mind if you're carrying one of the Kirikos because you're going to get really sweaty. I remember being wet at the end of the night, so I guess that helped at least with the embers burnt onto my shirt.
Olga asks, what time at night do the festivities start?
Well, as you can see from the first video, you can even join. Let me try to go back. People are starting at the beginning of the day over here. So if you'd like, so that's probably around, since this is the summer, around like 4 p.m. I believe. And if anyone's correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the first night. It's around in the late afternoon, early evening, and that it probably goes as definitely goes past midnight. I remember getting home at like 2 a.m. So they are going at it all day. And then the second night, I believe starts later at the beginning of the evening. And as I said earlier, that one goes well past midnight because everything you saw with the Mikoshi that they were smashing on the ground, going in the water, they do that more than once. So
Cynthia comments, it appears most of the participants are young. I myself was quite surprised to see so many young children in the videos.
yeah, I think I even saw some of my students that I had because some of these videos are from like 2021. And then I definitely, when I was attending, I'd see my students, even the neighboring town schools, and they'd come screaming Ian Sensei to me. So yeah, so they have the young people from the schools, and then the more young adults. This is like a really big event for the whole area. So you could tell that there's a lot of like passing it down from generations. Um, and then finally there are also I don't know if it's like a company or something, like a service you can hire that I think the town may hire to like have people go throughout the town, which I think it would be primarily younger people going throughout the town to kind of like get everyone excited about things, or like maybe hiring some people to play music, things like that.
Julia asks, do you know how it's decided who gets to be carried on the shrines?
Uh, that is a good question. I believe because each Kiriko is designated to a certain neighborhood within the town. So like the seem primarily the fathers of that area, and then some women as well, are going to be the primarily ones carrying it, and then their children and such are going to be sitting on top of the kiriko playing music and like the flute and the drums. I remember in Ushitsu Elementary that they were practicing taiko and flutes to get ready for it.
Joe asks if you know what they're chanting.
So the first night they are chanting something like Saseo Se, Saseo, or something like that. And I tried looking into it and I could not find it. That said, the second night, I have a theory about what they're chanting the first night, because of what the second night they're chanting. You hear them going chosai, chosa, chosa, chosai, chosa, and you hear that over and over again. That is shortened from a longer prayer that I would unable to tell you the entirety because it's long. But that's essentially they're chanting, appease the strong deity that transcends all by the morning. So so my theory is that what they're chanting with the Kiriko is something related to that.
Emily and Yuko were commenting on the Mikoshi that seemed to be beautifully made, but gets destroyed every year. Do you know if they need to make new ones every year? Who makes them? Do the appearances change over time, different colors and such?
I do know that they do make it every year, especially like obviously the Taimon's torches, the Kiriko. Who makes it? I believe as far as the Mikoshi, I believe the town does make it, and that is for all summer festival towns. And I would say for the Kiriko as well. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised also if they had to hire extra help of maybe there's a company within the town that specifically creates it. They probably have an expert craftsman. And then I actually was friends with someone who lived in Matsunami, and he was a priest for one of the Buddhist temples in the area, and his family had to do with like blessings and funeral rites and such. And I believe like people like them will help with like building the Mikoshi and things like that.
Marie asks a related questions. How are the Mikoshi funded? But it sounds like the city.
Yes. Yeah, no, the city definitely has a lot of funding directed towards town festivals. I would say probably a large amount of it just because it attracts so much tourism and excuse me, and they get so much revenue just from that. There's actually a little controversial story from one of the towns in Noto is that there was some COVID relief money that was sent towards the town, and they used some of that to build another statue.
Ali asks, do you know those who participate in the event, if they go through a training or rehearsal?
I believe so, yeah, earlier on in the day. And since this is a thing they do every year, other than the 2 years from COVID, in which it unfortunately was postponed, they how they do it and go through the route is something that they know every year.
Robin asks, does every man of the town get an opportunity to carry and smash the Mikoshi? How are the participants chosen?
That is a good question that I wish I knew the answer to, because for the Kiriko, it's more open. Like I said, I was able to carry one of the Kiriko, and they're inviting people in. Whereas the Mikoshi, you could tell that there is a specific set of men. I believe it may be like a rotating, like man from each neighborhood comes in, because clearly, like, where there's a Kiriko per neighborhood, there's only one Mikoshi for the whole town. Well, no, because they do it again. Maybe it's per neighborhood.
Anne and Emily were commenting on there were some women helping carry some of the Kiriko on the first night that they saw, but they didn't see any woman involved in the activities with the Mikoshi on the second night, and just generally wondering about women's involvement in the festival because it appeared to be mostly men.
Well, definitely considering that it dates back from to the 17th century, at least in legend, you can imagine that festivals like this were probably primarily at first only men, and that over time, just as it became less of a religious spiritual thing and more of like a town fun festival, women were getting more and more involved. But Yeah, and especially because the second night with the Mikoshi is more tied to the religious aspect of it, since they have the priest praying in front of it. That makes sense that it's more just specifically men. I didn't see any women participating in that aspect of it when I was there. Whereas the first night is more just fun. So that's why like anyone, and even like a foreigner like me, can come in and carry the kiriko. Whereas like they weren't having anyone other than the people from the town going in with the mikoshi.
Joe comments the Mikoshi appear surprisingly sturdy. What are they made of? What are kind of the elements that are attached to them?
Um, it's only wood. So for being only made of wood, it is surprisingly stable. It's obviously covered in certain types of lacquer and such, but um
I just put it in the chat. It's made by Noto Hiba cypress.
oh, very interesting. See that, and that's so interesting that it's made by a specific tree to the area. But I was surprised too, seeing how much that they're actually smashing it, how like little it actually looks smashed by the end of the night. I'm sure the actual, like, if you were to really look at it up close, I'm sure it would look really smashed, but I assume, and a cypress tree is a strong tree, it's built so that it can last hours and hours of being smashed up against walls and the street and fire being burned down onto it, being thrown into the river.
Olga did also comment that they appear to be still mostly intact during the rampage destruction phase and thrown into the river. So at the end of the night, it wasn't just, little pieces. It's still
No, yeah, it's built to last for the entire night. And like you could see from the video that by the end they're bringing it around the fire, and even though they are in the river, you can imagine that at that point it's probably starting to crumble. And like I said, they bring it back to the where they start the night, the mikoshi, and they check to see if it's properly destroyed.
Yuko comments, and I think you addressed this in the presentation, but just like Abare Matsuri, it was intended to contain an epidemic. They mentioned that Yasaka's Shrine Festival in Gion also started to contain a different epidemic as well.
And that's extremely interesting. And I would doubt that it would be contained to just those two, even in Japan, because I'm sure that's probably seen all over the world. Yeah, that I love that aspect. It's fascinating.
Steven says, on the first night, how long do they carry the Kiko around the fires? The same people the whole time, or do people swap in and out?
Yes, people swap in and out. It's probably, like I said, that it begins with the people specific to their neighborhoods. Like I initially was invited to carry a kiriko at the beginning, and but then they had to rescind the invitation, I guess, because I think it was someone who worked at one of the schools I worked at. I think he believed like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm not supposed to be there at the beginning. So, but yes, as the night goes on, this aspect of it, as you're seeing in this picture where they're carrying it around the fires, that it's a few hours, and then they carry it around the fires, and then they go back into the streets and carry it up to where it's supposed to end. Like I said, the one I helped carry near the end was just at a family mart up a hill, which I think is back at the start of the neighborhood. So I believe, just like any parade route, it probably goes around in a circle.
Yuko asks, do they distribute shimaki or talisman like at Gion Matsuri? Were there anything else that the participants received or other ways the spectators got involved?
That's a good question. Not that I received or anything, but I could definitely see that being an aspect of it. Because I saw that at the Aida Toriyama Festival, the Aida Machi Toriyama Festival in Suzu. So
There
Yes.
is a custom called yobare, so they invite friends and families and cook nice meal and entertain them. Apparently, it's called yobare at
Hmm,
the Abare Matsuri.
wonderful.
Joe asks, are there regular injuries that you know of?
That I know of specifically that happened off the top of my head, no, but like I said, the police are regularly keeping people away from it, so I can imagine that it's something that could easily happen and could happen. I imagine because they've been doing this a long time, like at least the people of the town get things under control. But like I said, there's tons of tourists, so you can imagine that someone might have too much to drink or something, and they trying to get in on it. Like you said, the people in the river, they're just having fire fall on them and everything. So, or even there's a part in one of the Mikoshi videos where they're not in the water, they're just marching around, circling around a fire. So, and I saw some people stumbling around, so I could easily see someone falling into some embers and burning wood and getting hurt from that.
And then final question, unless anyone has any more questions, but Stephen asks, were there any snacks or treats that were unique to this prefecture area or festival?
Unique to it? That's a tough question for me because I didn't attend any other summer festivals outside of the Noto Honto region in Ishikawa. So if there were, this is only making me want to go to more festivals now. I'm trying to remember what I got. Let's see. I remember actually there is one that we noticed earlier. Naoko-san. What was the one that you noticed? Oh, the brown sugar boba.
And it looks like kari cheese, it says.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know if if that's as common. All right, well, if that is it, I just have one final slide, which is a thank you. Here are pictures of my friends and me at the 2022 Abare Matsuri. Like I was saying before, this is what the festival is all about at the end of the day. It's about people coming together and celebrate being happy. So I would like to thank again the JET program and Robby for allowing me to put an event like this together. And I also want to thank, of course, the Japan Society of Boston and all of my wonderful coworkers for helping me. Thank you, Naoko, for giving me the opportunity and outlet to share such a wonderful experience with the world. This is why people love JSB and come to us, and we are invested in the exchange of history and culture, which I was able to experience and share with you all today. And most importantly, I want to thank you all for coming today and listening to me speak about something that is important to so many people. You are the reason JSB is able to continue doing events like this. And I hope the people of Ushitsu had a wonderful Abare Matsuri this year, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your summer. So thank you again and have a good night.